recording. All right, man. How's it going? First of all,
Good.
just
Yeah,
in general.
it's great. All good. Craziness during the pandemic, but we're
Yeah,
we're
I was
here.
yeah, it's about the same. I mean, so when I met you, you were running sound. Are you still doing that kind of thing or
I run sound as often as I can, but with live
yeah,
events being
I know,
so
right? Yeah,
shut
yeah.
down, yeah.
So, and I guess I want to jump right into the music mentorship business. What inspired you to start that and what's the biggest thing you want to teach people about in that course?
Well, I guess I should back up and say that I've been a musician, I've been a sound guy, I've been a lawyer. Let me back up one more time. So I grew up playing music and I grew up recording everything from, 4-track tape to all the way up to computer recording. And started my first company as an LLC, a recording studio back in somewhere in the early 2000s, 2001, 2002, somewhere in there.
Right.
And then my daughter was born in 2004. And at that point, I kind of put the studio stuff on hold because I was trying to make a living, and the bands that I was in weren't, they just, not, I wasn't getting enough traction,
Right, yeah.
so I figured, the best way for me to provide for my daughter was to go to law school, and I wanted to go for representing musicians and artists. I mean, I
Yeah.
literally had a conversation with a local studio owner who's a buddy of mine. It's funny, the minute you start a recording studio, you meet all the other recording studios.
Sure.
Uh, you know, so
Yeah.
I was working with a lot of people around town, and one of my buddies was like, "Listen, if I were going to go back to school, and I was contemplating it because
Mhm.
having a child and big life changes." Um, he was like, "I'd go for law because none of these MFers that we know that we work with have a
Yeah.
law degree. None of them know the first thing about the music business from a business standpoint. They're just out there writing and recording and
Sure.
and trying to gig and just doing it by the seat of their pants. And then all of a sudden they find themselves in trouble or they have a situation, and then they're hunting around for lawyers. And the guy we use is in Manhattan, and he's $500 an hour, and it's
Wow,
just."
yeah.
It's
Insane.
insane. So
Yeah.
for the Midwest to have a good music lawyer was something that immediately was sort of a goal, like put on my radar.
Right.
So I graduated from law school in 2011, took the bar, and started my practice right away. I've been working with musicians. Actually, before I passed the bar, I was in this musical charity that Gary Burbank, the radio host and comedian, founded for the local music community called Play It Forward. So I was sort of representing musicians' interests
Yeah.
even before I became a lawyer. And then the minute I started, it was kind of like everything that touches a musician's life, I would do. So whether it be their DUI or their divorce
Sure, yeah,
or
yeah.
or copyright, contracts, trademarks, licensing,
Mhm.
all of the music business stuff. So it's been a little over 9 years. I'm in my 10th year now practicing law, and um, during that time, I started a production company that renovated a local bar restaurant and turned it into a real music venue. And we went from having a band on the floor in the corner
Right.
to being one of the premier stages in town.
Yeah.
Sadly, that business partnership fell apart, and so I'm no longer with that organization. But during that 3 years, I ran sound over 390 times.
Right.
So I was doing a lot of it, and I was 6, 7 nights a week, and running the law firm, and still
Uh-huh.
just doing whatever I could to write and record and
Right.
participate in music. I led a 10-piece band that played every Tuesday night.
Mhm.
Half the band were musicians from the School of Rock, so they were young
Right, right, right.
high school kids. But they were all School of Rock All Stars. They went through 3 levels of auditions to get into the School of Rock All Star level, and
Sure.
just fantastic musicianship. And then the other half the band was at CCM,
Mhm.
and they were all young college kids. So it was fun to be a part of such a high powered endeavor. And we were kind of aiming at the wedding corporate, event band kind of
Yeah.
style. So we were doing everything from Motown to soul to funk to Steely Dan, Stevie Wonder,
Right.
anything. And we'd throw in all kinds of stuff, Beyonce
Yeah.
to John Mayer to whatever,
Sure.
Jason Mraz.
All the wedding classics. Yeah.
Yeah, but we also did some Grateful Dead. We did some jamming. We did a bunch of stuff, and it was a huge thing. But then, I was mentoring those guys,
Hmm.
the law practice has just been going along as well. But then COVID hit, and
Uh-huh.
kind of had to pivot and see what else was out there, because a lot of my musicians weren't coming to me for advice. They weren't sure what to do. Everybody was initially in shock, like, okay, all our
Yeah.
gigs are canceled. And initially, I joined a program for sync licensing and created a Facebook group around sync, because I figured if people are home, they could do recordings, they could write, and
Hmm.
maybe we could focus on getting some Cincinnati area musicians
Sure.
placed in ads and TV and that kind of stuff. So that was the beginning of the pandemic.
Right.
What happened over the 6 months was that, the first 6 months anyway, was that I met and interacted with a whole bunch of people from around the world. Really, I joined an organization that's led by Kathy Heller. She's a multi six-figure songwriter, and she has a program called Six Figure Songwriting.
Right.
And doing that program opened up just a whole world of possibilities for people who are already in sync.
Right.
And then I found myself busier than ever with legal work for setting up sync agencies and
Sure.
negotiating sync contracts, and became a little less focused on that original Facebook group that I set up.
Yeah.
It became more helping this community of about 300 songwriters, because I was the only music lawyer in the bunch, and we were showing up to sort of classes a couple times a week, and there were these comments like, well, from the mentors and instructors, I'm not a lawyer, but
Uh-huh.
this is how I do it. And there's only so many times you can raise your hand in a 266 person Zoom and say, well, I am a music lawyer. I am a lawyer. I know the answer to this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all of those sort of business questions that come up as a singer songwriter, as a musician, as a band, and getting yourself from, I'm a band in the basement to, or I'm just a songwriter, to
Yeah.
generating revenue. And how do I do that the fastest, most effective, most efficient way?
Right.
And also, how do I spend don't spend money on this, do spend money on that.
Right. What do you
There's
invest in? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a ton of decision points that come
Sure.
along in building any business. So I built this music business mentorship program, which we're in our fourth or fifth week now. It's an 8-week intensive program, and we go through everything. You get a ton of legal documents, work for hire documents, producer agreements, collaborator one-stop agreements. We're looking at licensing contracts, record label contracts, just a whole package of stuff. But it's also, a business plan. How do we form a business plan? What does a
Right.
business plan look like? And if I want to build a physical facility for recording music,
Hmm.
and I need some financing, I need a business plan that an SBA loan or a banker is going to be able to look at and
Sure.
see it and make sense of it. So it's a lot about finding what you do best, what the world needs, what they'll pay you for, and how
Right.
you monetize it, and not waste
Yeah.
any investors' money.
I would. Yeah. Yeah. I would say you've pivoted correctly. But what is in this? So you're in your fourth week now. Is that what you said? Fourth or
Mhm.
fifth week?
Yeah.
What's one of the biggest things that people don't know about when they're trying to copyright original stuff or anything like that? What's one of the biggest steps in order to that that beginner songwriters don't really know about?
Well, I think that there's more than one thing,
Right.
I don't know that there's really a. It's hard to say that there's this one big quick hit. I mean, I'm still getting people asking me if mailing themselves recordings is
Right.
going to stand up in a court of law. And so, if I could just start off and say that copyright, your rights to your music are derived from your copyright. And
Mhm.
while copyright magically attaches to anything that you've created once it's set in fixed form, in order to really protect that, you're going to need to register it with the U.S. Copyright Office. And I think that there's this idea, especially in the sync world, that I'm going to write a ton of music, and it's a numbers game. I'm just going to create piece after piece after piece, and
Right.
then I'm going to get it some of it placed and some of it not, but I don't really care if it's copyrighted or not because that's an
Right.
added expense. But
Mhm.
I would say that what people don't understand is that if someone does rip your song off, you can't get into court without it being registered with the US Copyright Office. Not only that, but you can't ask the court to award you statutory damages or attorney's fees. So
Mm.
that's something that I've talked about a ton lately. Statutory damages, there's a range that a judge can put on it. But if you imagine, even if it's at the lower end of the range and it's $1,000 per infringement,
Right.
that's a lot of money that you are no longer able to get from the
Yeah.
court. And you can't ask for attorney's fees. And a lot of people are under the impression that there are copyright litigators out there who work like the personal injury lawyers where they don't get paid unless you get paid. No, that's not how it
Right.
works. You have to pay them per hour, and
Yeah.
you're racking up $300-500 an hour bills. Um, and it's just you could be spending $100,000 before you see the inside of a courtroom.
Yeah.
That's in extreme case perhaps, but if you can't get the other side to cover your costs,
Mhm.
then you could be throwing good money after bad, and you're only allowed to sue them if you wait until you find out about the infringement, and then you register. You can only sue them for the net profits that they've made. So it becomes a real business decision. Is the juice
Yeah.
worth the squeeze? Do I really go to court for this, or do I just try and take what I can get?
Right. Yeah, I definitely I know a lot of people who do write for sync, and they're just in the volume business game. Again, it's not about it's an added expense, it's an added headache to go ahead and copyright everything that you do, which may be, 300 tracks a year, you know what I mean? Like that's a lot of work to that, and maybe somebody will steal it, you know what I mean? So,
Well, and here's what I would say to that,
right.
is that as a part of your business plan, if you are planning this out correctly, you take 10 completed masters by the same grouping of authors and you pay $85. That's $8.50 per song.
Mhm.
That's like buying a pack of strings, and that's not an exorbitant expense when you plan for it. Now, the other side of the coin is, okay, so maybe you're not releasing music to the public. Maybe you're not
Mhm.
going to Spotify, and maybe you're not going the artist path. You're going the sync path, and so you have 200-300 songs, and maybe they're not all songs. A lot of them are just instrumental cues or
Right.
whatever you're creating. But what I would suggest is that once you do make a placement, that you take a certain percentage of that placement revenue when you get the check and turn around and
Mhm.
copyright the stuff. Now, certainly the top ones that you would copyright are the ones that are now going to be on whatever Netflix
Right.
series
Yeah.
or whatever. But it's just about planning your business, and that's one of the things that we go into with the music business mentorship
Yeah.
is what's your end goal and how do you get there and how do you do it the right way without wasting money on things you don't need to spend on. I wouldn't say that for someone who creates 500 pieces of music a year that they need to go register every single one of them with the Copyright Office.
Mhm.
However, if you are achieving some degree of success in your music business, or you are an artist where you're releasing 10 tracks on an album every 6-8 months
Mhm.
or once a year, then it's absolutely part of your process. It's got to
Right.
be. It just has to be. You have to
Yeah.
register that stuff, and it's just like having a mixing engineer and a mastering engineer, and just
It's part
doing
of it.
it the right
Yeah,
way. Yeah.
exactly. It's all part of it. And one of the things that I was told super early on was one of the first people you want to look to hire is a music lawyer. Would you agree with that?
I think that a music lawyer is a fantastic asset for your team. I think that as a music lawyer myself, I get into the role of manager quite frequently. And if
Right.
you build a relationship with that person, then maybe they're not charging you for every single hour that you spend on the phone with them. Some will, and it can be kind of a formal process. But I think when you have a mentor or an advisor, I think
Mhm.
when you build your team, you need to have mentors and advisors, and certainly an experienced music lawyer is going to be a really key element to that team. Now, if you have one that you don't have quite as close a relationship as I do with a lot of my clients, maybe you pile up your questions and ask them
Yeah.
all at once. But you definitely need to have one at some point in your music career. And there's a lot of information that's out there that a music lawyer can help distill in a very fast fashion. I mean, I can
Right.
point you to all the books and all the podcasts and all the things that are explaining things. But if you don't
Sure.
want to spend, your whole life researching, maybe knowing who to go to kind of distill that stuff could be an
Yeah.
asset.
Do you
So.
think do you think people are trying to like client you know people who give artists these contracts, they're trying to get away with something, or like have you seen where, because artists, we won't read the contract, not gonna lie. Not all the time, but have you seen some of that kind of stuff where it's like you have to explain, okay, this is what it means in layman's terms, and this is a bad contract?
So here's the thing. I think that anyone who is in business, in the music business, is trying to maximize profits and minimize expenses. And I think that when you're dealing with copyright, there are a lot of businesses in the music business, publishers, record labels,
Hmm.
that are trying to maximize the potential for revenue by um, owning the rights for the life of the copyright, which is the life of
Right.
the author plus 70 years. So that's a long time. That's long after you're dead as the musician, right? So I think that it's really important for musicians to understand that, and to understand that if you're going to get into bed with this other partner,
Hmm.
whether it be a label or a publisher or
Hmm.
even an admin company, you need to understand that they're trying to maximize their profits, but they're also trying to exploit your works in such a way that you get a revenue stream. It's important to understand that while they might not be trying to screw you over,
Right.
they are trying to make enough money to fund their business and keep their business alive. And
Cor-
there's a lot of musicians who are in the idea or mindset that it's art, it's not about the
right.
money, or, but there's a lot of starving artists out there, and I don't think that there should be. I think that, you know, even Michelangelo was paid to, paint the Sistine
Yeah.
Chapel. So you
Absolutely.
real artists don't starve. They're just they learn how to manage their business. And if managing your business isn't for you, then absolutely you need a music lawyer.
Yeah.
Probably need an accountant and a business manager and a personal manager and a few other things as well.
Hmm.
But I would say that the majority of the contracts that I see are not egregious in that they're trying to exploit people. They're
Right.
trying to exploit the music as
Hmm.
much as they can to try to generate the maximum amount of revenue. I have negotiated major label contracts. I have negotiated minor indie label contracts,
Sure.
and it all depends on the people that you're with.
Yeah.
I've had 45 to 60 page, 360-degree deals that are dense, small print. They take a piece of every single
Yeah.
possible source of revenue. And I've also seen, contracts that are 1 or 2 pages where there's a lot that is left unsaid. But
Sure. It's
the
up to
partnership,
interpretation. Yeah.
yeah, but the partnership seems to work, whereas maybe that contract that covers everything is a little bit more slanted in their favor.
Yeah. Do you think those are the 360 deals are now, looking at the industry now, are more common, the 360 deal, because of streaming not making tons of money and just trying to get every little ounce of money from the artist?
Well, if you're in that upper echelon where you're talking to the major labels, then yes, they are more common.
Sure.
But when you're talking about commonality, you're talking about the millions of people who are musicians, millions of songwriters, and it's not common at all for those folks to be even approached by a major label.
Hmm.
So the commonality, it's the same old adage. I mean, the top 1% is earning 90% of the revenue in the
Mhm.
business, and the bottom 90 98% really is earning, that 1% or
Yeah.
2% of the it's just you're looking at these big publishing deals that have happened this week. Bob Dylan, $300 million for his
Wow. Yeah.
catalog. That's There's a lot that's going on
Mhm.
at the giant level, with capital gains taxes and tax structures, and
Sure.
how Bob Dylan's trying to cash in now so that he can maximize that revenue while during his lifetime, so
Yeah.
that he can best set up his family for whatever happens after he's gone. But also taking advantage of tax situations. But that's like the giants are stomping
Yeah,
around and the rest of
absolutely.
us are pygmies hiding in the grass. Like
Yeah.
we're never going to see that stuff, or there are some
Yeah.
people who aren't going to see that. But I would say that overall, yes, the revenue streams, since 1995, obviously the industry has changed so much. And just
Mhm.
even in the past few years, things have changed so much. And revenue streams are, they're, everybody's chasing pennies or
Yes.
fractions of
Yeah.
pennies, right?
Mhm.
So you have publishers whose whole job it is to try to wring every single penny out of the song. And then you have companies like Songtrust who are saying, well, you don't need a publisher, you need an administrator like us, and we'll take 25% or 15% or whatever their percentage is, and we'll make sure that you collect all the royalties due to you. But they're not really
Right.
exploiting your stuff and looking for new revenue. They're just trying to collect revenue. So people don't necessarily see what it is that the role that they're providing. And while
Right.
Songtrust does a great job of educating people with, here's where royalties come from, here's
Mhm.
what publishing is, they also dog traditional publishers hardcore, and they say you don't really need that, but maybe you do.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
there's there's just everybody's trying to make a buck,
Mhm.
and the industry is full of people who are trying to make a buck. And
Yeah.
if you are aware of that and you expect that, then you can create the new music industry, which is full of caring, kind, non-exploitative people who are not trying
Yeah.
to manipulate you. I mean, we are the young new music business, and we make it how we
Yeah.
want it. And
Right.
so it's up to you to and me and everybody around
Right.
us
Yeah.
to say, okay, I'm going to approach this situation with kindness. I understand that that person needs to get paid for the value
Mhm.
they bring to the table, and I'm going to bring my value to the table, and we're all a team. I think
Yeah.
that if you tamp down the egos and you understand with more empathy the people around you and what they're trying to do in their aspect of the business,
Mhm.
then you can kind of approach the situation a little differently, and you kind of
Yeah.
see through some of that sort of, well, he wants a piece of every single t-shirt I
Sure.
sell, and
Yeah.
you know.
What are so what's where do you start with young songwriters? Like if there's a young artist who comes to you, what is one of the first things that you try to get them to understand about the business side of music?
Well, that first of all, that there is a business side,
Sure.
that the business is sort of omnipresent, and that you're sort of judged the minute you walk in the door. So just like
Mhm.
if you were an actor and you were going on a casting call or a casting interview, um, if you read for a part, they're judging you the minute you step into the room. And
Mhm.
so the music business is looking at you from the minute you step into the room. So when I see some young songwriters, there are some folks who do a brilliant job of marketing themselves, and they will go further faster than the folks who just think that everything that they do needs to be posted to social media
Mhm.
right away, rushing to social media. I've got songwriters who they want to be a songwriter, they want to be a singer. They show up to a bar where there's a guy with an acoustic guitar, and just because they're a cute girl and want to think that they are a singer or a songwriter, then they step up to the guy with the guitar and say, "Hey, can I sing this song with you?" And
Yes.
I'm gonna then have my friend film it, and it's going to go on YouTube. And then they're standing there at the microphone looking at the words, and they're
Ugh.
singing along, and it's like in a
Yeah.
crowded bar, and it's that's not
That's
professional.
no. Yeah, yeah. No way.
So what I would suggest is that if you want to be in this business, you approach all of your social media with professionalism, and you personalize you privatize your personal life.
Yes.
You put your personal page on lockdown. You only have your friends and family on that, and then you intentionally create all of your social media, and all
Yes.
of your social media needs to look like you are a star. Act like
Sure.
you have $30 million in the bank. Would Beyonce show up and stand at a bar and wave her phone in front of her face while she's singing the
That's
song?
that's such a that's so overlooked, just that little thing. It's just, there needs to be a line between personal and professional. You know what I mean? And so much of what social media is trying to do is obviously connect us personally. but there for us, for artists, we need to draw a line at some point.
Absolutely. And I would say that the sooner you draw that line, the easier it is to
Yeah.
maintain your professional profile and your personal life.
Hmm.
And, it's often hard to unwind when you achieve a certain degree of success. All of a sudden you've got, 5,000 fans on Facebook or they're friends, but you're not sure which are they? Are they
Right.
professional contacts? Are they friends? Are they, and then you have to invite everybody to go to this other page and migrate over. So it's really best, for the young folks who are just getting into the game. Look, just make your Facebook profile your first name, your middle name,
Right.
eliminate everybody but family and your close friends, and then have the public page be your moniker or your professional stage name, and
Hmm.
and just connect all of that stuff and run it like a business. All of your stuff has to be professional. It has to look polished. There's plenty of little additions you can get for the iPhone, whether it be Adobe Lightroom as an app
Yeah.
or adding little lenses or whatever to your camera.
Yeah.
Just making sure that everything looks like you went on a catalog photo shoot and
Right.
and you're out there, and the only music you drop is the music that's worth listening to,
Yeah.
not the stuff in the bar, not the whatever.
Yeah, it is easier and easier every day to sound professional, and it's cheaper and cheaper every day to look professional and sound professional and just do it right. And people just take it for granted, I think, a lot of the time.
I think they do, and I'm not pretending that it's easy. I'm in a
Right.
situation where during COVID, I've started a publishing company. I've started a licensing library. I've started a talent agency
Yeah.
with a colleague of mine who does modeling, and she's brilliant at her social media. I am terrible at my social
Right.
media, but I'm still handling court cases, and I picked up a few other criminal cases throughout COVID. So here I am driving to like my third courthouse of the day, and I'm on the phone with my mom, and I'm thinking, Mom, I got to stop and take a selfie somewhere, and it just doesn't like cross my
Oh
mind.
yeah, I hate that feeling, man, of like
But
the oh, I have to do this for social media. And I think that I'm not like that either. It's
yeah,
so funny.
it's definitely like a learned skill, and it's a
Yeah.
muscle you have to exercise.
It's
But
like I'm playing a bar tonight. I don't want to have to stop and like do the thing and like be like no, I just want to play the gig and do be professional and do all that. So
right, right.
it's interesting.
But
Um,
there's like some incredible musicians, incredible talent who never learn any of these lessons, and they never play for more than 30 or 40 people in a
yeah,
room.
there
And
you go.
I mean, it's about scalability, right? We were talking about this
Yeah.
the other night in my music business mentorship. So if you're going to practice really hard and show up for a gig prepared, and you want to grow that business, well, the you're going to put the same amount of work into every gig, but suddenly, if you're using social media right, your
Mhm.
audience becomes not the 30 or 40 or people that are there, but 30 or 40,000 people that might be able
Sure.
to see what you've worked hard on. And that's the power of digital. That's the power of
Mhm.
scalability. It's a disproportionate amount of return for the same amount of effort. You just
Yeah.
have to understand how to apply your effort so that
Mhm.
you can create that possibility of scalability. And
Yeah.
that's a key to this industry. That's the people who have
That is yeah.
millions of streams, that they're scaling their audience,
That's
right?
what they've
And
done. Yeah.
yeah.
It's that is yeah, a huge lesson for sure. So musicbusinessmentorship.com, is that right?
That's right. Although we've kind of jumped into it, and the website is the thing that's lagging. We're using
Oh,
a Facebook page right
okay.
now. We've got a page. We've got a group. If you're someone
Yeah.
who's interested in learning some of this stuff, so the group is you kind of jump in there. There's about 150, 160 people in the group right now. There's like 700 or 800 people on the page. The
Yeah.
group is a little bit smaller, and then there's this backstage pass group, which are the people who are actually in the course, and we use that a lot to communicate and deliver content.
Yeah.
Um, but then what we're doing is we're building content through these first 8 weeks. The website will then go live, and there will be a course that you can actually take. And so there'll be 16, 18 hours of downloadable videos that you can watch or
Oh
stream.
man.
And then there's all the package of contracts and templates that you get with it.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's my way of scaling what I and this is a Japanese concept of ikigai, which is like finding your what you love, what you're passionate about, what the world needs, and what the world will pay you for.
Yeah.
It's kind of that crossroads of
Yeah.
adding value to the world. Well, mine, a part of mine, I think, is it seeing other people succeed and helping other people succeed. So
Right.
my role really as a coach and a mentor is to give you as much value and as much informational content as you need. And for the folks that are in the course, I'm really pouring myself into their businesses. So all of my 10 years of experience of practicing law and building businesses and working with entrepreneurs, all
Yeah.
of my 30 plus years of playing music and performing and running sound and working with big bands and little bands and everything in between,
Right.
all of my recording expertise, all my expertise in landing songs for sync, negotiating sync deals, everything in the kitchen sink. It's just I'm throwing it all in there.
Yeah. That's
So
great.
that's it. It's a Facebook
Yeah.
page now, but it will be musicbusinessmentorship
Yeah.
dot
And
com.
that Facebook page is so helpful. It is so there's a lot of great stuff on there. Everyone should go join it and join the group as well. The group's interesting. Just having that community there of other people who maybe have the same questions as you. That's one of the big things. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. John, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate talking to you,
Hey, it's my
catching up.
pleasure, man. Thank you for
No
hosting.
problem.
This has been really
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. All right.